Wow, the first question I thought of was like instantly a bummer of a question. I'm not going to ask that one. Like, if there is one person that you feel guilty about, like, who would haunt you in this?
I think that might be a little too much for this podcast. I think that might feel a little too personal.
Hello and welcome back to Saving People, Queering Things. It's the Supernatural podcast where, as per usual, it's all about the trauma. Today we are pulling up to Season 7, Episode 4, Defending Your Life. I'm your host, Noah, pronouns he, him.
I'm August, pronouns they, them.
And the question of the day I have for my co-host is if
Noah thought of a really good, really intense question, and then we nixed it immediately because it's too personal for the podcast.
Way too personal. Who would you want to be your lawyer in a trial like this?
Ooh, are we talking like someone in your life, or are we talking like a famous lawyer? Like, what are we?
Either one.
I don't know a lot of famous lawyers, so that's maybe a moot point. I wasn't going to choose that anyway.
Well, now it's got to be just famous lawyers. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I feel like you want someone who knows you well, like knows your intentions. I feel like I would almost have to go with like my sibling, go with Sam, because I feel like they'd have, the right things to say and
Totally fair. I would obviously pick Hannah Beth because she's great at arguing.
And she was also my secondary choice for myself. So
yeah, and she would fight to the death to make sure that we got out of it. Okay,
exactly. So
yeah, it's a solid pick both times. Shout out to our siblings again. Woo. We don't do that enough on this podcast. Just kidding. We do it all the time. Well, now that you've met your host for today, it's time to catch you up. If you haven't watched Supernatural recently, here's what you've missed on the road so far. First up, I'm going to recap the show up to this point.
Yeah. Noah, are you ready?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so the two brothers, they hunt everything. They live with their father, Bobby, most of the time. And they've both been to hell now. Sam lost his soul, got that back. They started the apocalypse and then stopped the apocalypse, defeated Lucifer and Michael. Cool. And then Sam gets his soul back. Already covered that. Oh, Castiel, their best friend and Dean's lover, is dead now because he accidentally unleashed Leviathans on Earth. And now they're trying to fucking figure out how to kill them. And it's not going great.
Yeah. That's what you missed. And
a little out of order, but
you know what? You got the main stuff. That's what matters.
Yeah.
All right. I get to recap this week's episode.
Whew.
Okay. I think that I am ready.
Hell yeah. You got this. There's a lot to happen in this one, but I believe in you. 3, 2, 1, go.
So there are all these really strange murders happening where people are dying, but it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And they realize that it is actually Osiris who is putting people on trial, not for are they guilty, but do they feel guilty? And Dean ends up on trial. Sam tries to defend him. They bring forth witnesses like the ghost of Joe. Dean is still guilty about killing Amy Pond, but doesn't tell Sam. Sam manages to kill Osiris, and Joe and Dean have a heart-to-heart before she disappears again.
Beautiful. Broke my fucking heart.
I know. I was like, that's the killer in this episode.
Yeah.
Joe stuff.
Yeah. Which, I mean, now that we've got all caught up, it's time to jump into this week's hunt. Today we are pulling up to Season 7, Episode 4, Defending Your Life, through the theme of forgiveness. Which, for an episode about a bunch of trials about feeling guilty, forgiveness is the theme that we could have chosen.
I was thinking a lot in this episode about like not primarily forgiveness from other people, but the idea of like forgiving yourself, because I think that's like sort of tied into like guilt here. Like, and we get a kind of this contrast between Sam and Dean and where they both are at in terms of like forgiving themselves.
Yeah, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
Huge moves. Okay, well, just to start off the emotional part of the conversation, August made sure, thanks to Beth from Driver Picks the Podcast, that
thanks, Beth.
I did not watch the recap for this.
The recap spoils that Joe was in it.
Okay, it shows Joe like in the
recap. The recap shows Joe. Well, and I think I think it depends where you got the recap, because like I watched the recap and the recap I watched didn't have Joe, but I do remember there being a recap that shows you one of Joe's original scenes, and it like sort of jumps the gun, and you go, oh, this episode's gonna have something connected connection to Joe, and then it sort of spoils the whole like moment when she's the first
Yeah.
witness. So
And I was jumping out of my seat screaming. I was hype, and not in a good way.
yeah, I
I
mean,
was
not
like,
the ideal situation we want to have her back in.
no.
Also raises some questions about like, does she just get yoinked out of heaven
Yeah, like
for
it's
this? Is it
super
actually like, is
weird.
it actually her, or is it just like a recreation of her?
Okay, I think it's got to be her
I think so as well.
because her like whenever she's finishing up her time on the stand and she leans forward to be like, Dean, by the way, I don't, and then it gets cut off. And we all know she was gonna say, I don't blame you. Like that's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
only thing that she could have been saying.
Yeah.
And that's a very Joe thing to say when she knows Dean is like right there, feeling guilty.
She very clearly is not like, it's not like sort of when we went to heaven in season 5 and there were moments where you were like, is this really this person, or is this sort of like Zachariah manipulating the situation? Like this does feel like her. It does feel like she's there not because she chose to be, but because she sort of has to be.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, makes Osiris a really fucking powerful being if he's able to summon the dead.
Yeah. Which, I mean, okay, it asks the question of like, if this is an Egyptian god, what level of control does he have over, the quote unquote Christian heaven?
Right.
And
like Joe's not a ghost. Like from everything, Joe's not like, she appears as like as a spirit, but we don't have any evidence to believe that she didn't pass on to the afterlife when she died.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason to believe that she would have been a vengeful spirit or like hung on to Earth.
Definitely not.
Theoretically, Osiris has a power to temporarily pull people from literal heaven, which seems like a lot of power.
Yeah, a pretty decent amount.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think it's so interesting that it was Joe.
Yeah.
Like, I just think it's so interesting that it was Joe.
That one makes a lot of sense because, I mean, he never really got closure with her. And they can say they didn't have feelings the whole time, but like we all know I'm a Dean Joe truther.
Fair.
And they could have a throuple with Cass. Like that'd be okay. I'd be down with that. But
okay.
Yeah, unpack that later in your own time. It's okay.
I'm gonna need a moment with that one before I have any reaction to it.
I mean, that one haunts me still. Like, Abandon All Hope is one of my favorite episodes, but like also least favorite because it's very emotionally charged. And
it's one of the biggest costs we've ever had in the whole show so far of like characters we really love. Like, it's one of the two of the most significant deaths we've had, and like a lot of the ones that we would say are more significant are characters who have come back.
Yeah.
So
Dean, Sam, Cass.
We've like lost Joe and Ellen, and like there's never been any indication that they're gonna be resurrected.
Closest we got was Ellen coming back in the Titanic episode.
Right. Alternate universe Ellen.
Yep.
But this is like, it's also, it's Joe. It's like, I think about all the times when they show some of those scenes of her and Dean interacting, like
a fucking clip show of trauma. Like, come on.
And like so manipulated, like what the things they choose to show. And it's so interesting because like Osiris is clearly, it's really interesting how they present Osiris. Like they present him as sort of like, he does not seem interested. Like as much as he says, I'm not judging. I'm just sort of like seeing if you're judging yourself. All the questions he asks are really meant to lead you to a conclusion of your own guilt. Like it's meant to lead Dean to be like does not actually seem to be asking Joe open-ended questions.
No.
Like
Sam should have been like, objection, leading the witness at least a couple of times. Nope.
I mean, if Osiris wasn't threatening to take Dean's tongue, Sam might have gotten there.
That's true. It's true.
And like Osiris again, if you aren't familiar with like Osiris, I mean, I think you probably are familiar with Osiris, Noah, but like for listeners, like if you aren't familiar with like who Osiris is, they don't really go into it super in depth in this episode, but he's like the Egyptian lord of the underworld. He's the judge of the dead.
Has a scale with a feather on one end and puts your human heart on the other end to see if they balance.
They missed such an opportunity here to like do something really cool visually with a scale. Yeah, like
even whenever he like held his staff across his legs, I thought he was going to do like a balance type of motion with it.
Oh yeah, which would have been so cool.
Yeah, it would have been pretty dope. I mean, fuck it, they could have even had Dean be sitting on a scale, like tied up in the chair, like a giant scale. He's sitting on one end,
like,
and
you don't literally need to pull pull his heart out to make this work. It can be metaphorical still, but also you could use a scale of some form.
But if he had pulled his heart out, we would have gotten another tick in the box for Dean's heart problem headcanon.
Right? Like there's so many that I don't even really want to criticize this episode like too much because I actually think it's really well done.
Me too.
But I do think there's a couple things that I would have maybe like added to just like really lean more into if you're gonna bring Osiris in, like
cutting straight to the end when Osiris gets got by Sam, like that special effect of having the blue eyes felt very Egyptian in nature, like the type of energy, like that's something you see a lot in pop culture media and whatnot. And then he like shrivels up to mummy status, and it's like, okay, so you do know who you're working with here, but
right, you did think about this. You did choose this god for a specific reason, and
having it be a ram's horn, like a shofar, that is the weapon to kill him. Like, there's a lot of symbolism there about Egyptians and Israelites, and
it like makes sort of sense. And like the whole thing with Osiris is like in like ancient Egyptian religion is that he was like killed and cut into pieces, and his wife like wraps all the pieces up and brings him back to life. And like that, I think they do like this cool reversal. And I also like the fact that they're not able to actually just straight up kill him. Yeah. That Bobby's like, I'll put him down for like a couple centuries. We'll let the space hunters deal with him.
Spacesuit do it. Like, oh yes, let's go. I want that series.
Which, Space Hunters?
Yeah, that'd be so good.
Isn't that like, I feel like there is a series that's like, isn't it Gideon the Ninth series sort of a little bit of that? I think it might be a little bit of that. It's like a space horror series. Okay. I have it saved. I have it from the library right now. It's called, it's like there's like, it's a science fantasy novel, but it's like about like necromancers and like stuff. Shoot. Anyway, I'm gonna read it. It's I just got it from the library. I'm really excited about it. And was telling me all about it, hyping it up.
Badass. Let me know how it goes.
I definitely will. Anyway, that's sort of what that made me think of. I don't think it's quite the same. I do want to see actual hunters in actual spacesuits.
Yeah, even if it's, I mean, like you could get back Jensen and Jared and have them do like a whole new series and be like, we're just descendants of the Winchesters. Like, I don't give a fuck. They can look the exact same. They can be different. You could have Jensen come in as like a mentor. I don't care. I want it.
Yeah. Let's hunt monsters in spacesuits. Let's have them go after Osiris again because he's come back.
Doctor Who mixed with supernatural. That's what I want. Like, that'd be so good. Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, Sam being the second witness, pretty bold of him. Because
I wonder if that was the plan. Like, I wonder was that Osiris's plan before? Because like, if Sam hadn't shown up, one would assume he hasn't kidnapped Sam. He would have to have kidnapped Sam. So like, if Sam hadn't showed up, who's the second witness? Do you think? If Sam hasn't shown up, doesn't show up, who is your like pitch for like who should they have called? Who should Osiris have called? Who's gonna make Dean feel guilty?
I mean, it's got to be Lisa or Ben, right?
Oh no! But they're also not dead.
They're also not dead. But I mean, I would argue he's got teleportation abilities. Surely, if he can reach into heaven and pick out a person,
he can surely yoink a middle schooler from their geometry class. Ben doesn't remember anything. Imagine if that's how Ben like found out. Imagine if that's like what breaks the like the memory thing that Cass did.
Windexing.
The brain Windexing. I'm gonna write that fic one day. I'm gonna write that Ben fic
That'd
one day.
That'd be beautiful. It would have hurt a lot because Ben and Lisa would have been like, "Who the fuck are you?" And then Dean's like racked by guilt. That's all.
They don't even need to tell Ben and Lisa what's going on. Like that's all Dean needs.
And Osiris wouldn't like. He would just sit there and be like, "Oh yeah, doesn't this hurt? How do you feel about it?"
Right.
Okay, bye guys.
You feel totally normal. You feel totally not guilty about it. Cass is my other thought is Cass. Obviously, he doesn't bring Cass, but like that's partly because like where is Cass?
Yeah, and also, is he powerful enough to yoink an angel out of wherever he is? And an extra powerful angel still, Seraph? I don't remember if they classified what he is.
I mean, and Cass has changed so much. Like, he's gone from normal angel to angel brought back by God to God.
to dead.
So, like, who knows? But that would also, I feel like, be a surefire guilt one. Adam would be another one.
Ooh, Adam would be interesting. I think one that would have been useful, and I always love watching him on screen, but I would have hated seeing him here, would have been John Winchester.
Imagine if it's like Joe and then John.
Ugh.
And imagine if Sam's still there, like Sam's still defending, but it's John.
That would have been a really great scene because Sam could have gone off on him and been like, okay, sorry, didn't you traumatize us as kids to make us do all this? Like, fuck you. Glad you're dead.
Dean comes out of it and is like, actually, I don't feel guilty at all.
Yeah, his daddy issues
him.
would have popped up a bit to be like, yeah, I should be sad. And then Sam's like, no, the fuck we shouldn't.
Sam's like, you were not guilty at all for that motherfucker.
Yep, it would have been good. I mean, Ellen would be powerful too, but it would kind of be a double beat doing Ellen and Joe in the same trial. That wouldn't quite work out the same. It would be rough to have it immediately after Joe, because then she can be like, you did this to my daughter? Like, what? But even Ellen wouldn't have that sort of vibe. Like, but Osiris, with his leading questions and whatnot.
Yeah, I feel like, Ellen would be, and Ellen more than Joe, like, Ellen really did choose, like, Ellen's story is a bit different.
Yeah.
And, like, Ellen dies because she chooses to stay with Joe.
Yeah.
There are so many possibilities. And obviously, like, I mean, do you agree that the third witness was going to be Amy?
I think so, because that's his most recent biggest secret that he feels guilty about and is hiding from Sam. Like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't know. Yeah. It still could have been any of the other ones that we mentioned, Right?
Like, does Osiris know? What does Osiris know, like, is Osiris sort of just, like, picking sort of at random and hoping he gets someone that Dean feels guilty about? Or is he, like...
They say that
how much does he know?
The ability to look into your heart. And so I think he can see what you feel guilty about and pick those specific people that have, like, the biggest... Yeah. Amy would make sense. Which, if you killed Kaylee from Firefly, you deserve to feel guilty for a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, and also, you fucking lied about it. Like, not a great move on Dean's part, and feels like it's going to. We obviously still haven't resolved that. Like, it almost got revealed, and Dean manages to just be like,
"Fuck it, move on."
Well, you think he realizes at that point that he's like, it's lost anyway. Like, he's not going to, like, not feel guilty.
Yeah, it's a rigged jury.
Yeah, and if it's dependent on, like, his own internal sense of, like, self-forgiveness, like, that's fucked. There's no way. Which I found it was really interesting in this whole episode, like, this idea of, like, being guilty and feeling guilty even after you've, like, quote unquote paid for your crime. Like, in terms of the earlier victims, like, a couple of the earlier victims were, like, in prison or, like, otherwise sort of took accountability for their action.
Yeah.
And, like, tried to change their lives a lot. But they still were, like,
type of moves.
Yeah. But because they still felt guilty, that's why Osiris targeted them.
Which sort of ties into what Sam's talking about at the end of the episode, where he's like, you know what? We've been through so much crazy shit. I'm just going to have to keep trying to do my best and keep moving. I can't be weighed down by everything, because if I did, I'd drown, basically.
Right.
Like,
and I think he has been. Like, I think in the past, like, we saw that. Yeah. We saw Sam be, like, sort of, like, so down on himself. Sort of like this kind of continuation of, like, what happened in the previous episode where he talked about, like, I am a freak and I'm not, like, I'm not running from that anymore. Like, that's just, like, who I am.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he says, I finally feel like the past is the past and I can move on with my life.
Yeah.
Like, if we're talking about forgiveness, that's, like, the only, I feel like, real example of it in this episode.
Yeah.
Like,
because even by the end of it, even through all of this, Dean is not forgiving himself. He's not feeling any of those feelings. He's just trying to push past it and move on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think he feels like he deserves to give himself a break. Like, he even says, like, him and Joe are talking, and Dean's saying to Joe, and he's talking about, like, her and Sam, and he's saying, like, you shouldn't have been pulled into this life. He says, you were just a kid, you and Sam, and hunters are never kids. I never was.
Yeah.
And then he talks about, like, the reason he went after both of them, like, the reason he went and found both of them was, like, because he didn't want to do it alone. And all I could think about was, like, the fact that, like, that's because Dean was also a kid. Like, that's why he didn't want to be alone in all of this. Like, he's also a kid. Yeah. And, like, he has this perception that he was, like, that he is uniquely, like, different from Sam and Joe, in that, like, he seems to feel like he made a choice to be a hunter,
which we know he didn't.
No.
Like, eventually he chooses to go back to it, sure, but that's different because it's comfortable for him because of how he was raised.
Yeah, he wasn't really raised with any other options, and so it's funny because he sort of because he never, like, pushed back against being a hunter, like, his whole childhood. He sort of seems to feel that, like, he doesn't get the same benefit of the found out that Sam and Joe do.
Which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, like his guilt, like obviously there's very real guilt there. Like Amy being a prime example of like, yeah, you fucked up, bad call. But it's all like so messed up in like all this other guilt that Dean feels for like just sort of existing as a hunter.
Yeah.
That isn't like Joe says that. She says, you carry all kinds of crap you don't have to. And Dean's like, yeah, just I'm 90% crap. Like if I don't have that, like
what am I? Like, fuck.
Yeah. Dean is not in a good place right now. And I don't think we realized how bad it was until this moment.
Yeah.
He's not been doing well since Cass has been gone.
No, that's been his major, release of sexual tension and just his way to have fun, it seems.
And I think also just like this sense of sort of hope and this sense of like, yes, we're messed up. Yes, we've made mistakes, but we are trying to like make the world better. We are trying to like do the right thing. And then after a year of like being manipulated by Cass, he's like sort of lost some of that feeling. Yeah. He's lost some of that like hope. And now he's like, well, I don't have Cass. There's monsters that we don't know how to fight. And everything is kind of fucked. And also like, I should have seen it coming. I think there's also some of his guilt.
Yeah, definitely.
And Sam is weirdly well adjusted.
Yeah, which is a little wild. You're literally seeing visions of Lucifer all over the place, and you're doing the best here.
To be fair, he does say that he feels like he's like paid for his bad things through being in hell, which like, buddy, maybe not.
Maybe not, because but like I see where you're coming from. You got tortured.
So he feels like that makes everything like even though you're like, buddy, you definitely did not deserve to get tortured.
No.
But it's sort of Sam's sort of thing too. Like Sam has this sort of sense of like, if I pay, if I like suffer, like there's sort of this martyr complex a little bit with Sam of the like suffering makes me a better person.
Yeah. But Dean, on the reverse hand, will take on all the suffering so other people don't have to, and he feels like he 100% deserves it, and is like, yep, this
it
is
doesn't matter.
Me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much he suffers. He'll sort of be like, yeah, well, I deserve it. I'm not paying for it. I just deserve it. Yep. Not like it doesn't make anything better. It's just what is coming for me.
I should have had worse, honestly. Like, fucking Dean, are you kidding me?
Like Dean came out, like it's interesting how Sam, after some time, I mean, obviously Sam, it's not as simple as that, but like Sam, after some time out of hell, has sort of reinterpreted hell in a totally different way than Dean had.
Yeah.
When Dean came back from hell.
Which sort of leads me into my mixtape suggestion for this episode.
Let's do it.
I went with Holding On To You by 21 Pilots because, first of all, it's a phenomenal song. Second of all, it sort of touches on some stuff about, guilt that you're holding on to, people that you've let down that you bring back up. But there's this one moment in particular that relates a lot to Dean, where he says, I'm open a moment and close when you show it. Before you know it, I'm lost at sea. And now that I write and think about it and the story unfolds, you should take my life and you should take my soul.
Ooh,
so.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, man. That's good. That's shit.
Big Dean vibes.
Big Dean vibes. Such a good choice. And there's like that whole line in that song about like entertaining faith. Like, I guess,
Yeah, please help me. Even if you don't believe it, just entertain the idea of it.
Yeah, damn, that's good shit. Sort of like also goes real along quite well with my song pick today, which is Handcuffs by Brand New. And it's sort of this like, it's got this recurring like bridge that goes, it's hard to be the better man when you forget you're trying. And then later on in the song, it's hard to be the better man when you're still lying. And I just think it's also like sort of where Dean is at, like Dean sort of feeling like he is inevitably the bad guy is sort of the vibe of this song of like I'd do all these things sort of like, but he's sort of talking to himself. Sort of the internal monologue of his brain is in this song, and the song is like just the sort of minor keys and the sound of it. I highly recommend listening. Very haunting.
No, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, I have to go back and listen to Holding On To You since I've been a while since I've heard it, and I remember really enjoying it. I
honestly didn't even have to look up the lyrics because I just know that whole bit off the top of the dome, and it was hard to say it in natural intonations and not rapping it like he does. Oh, but it's fine.
Oh, you should have rapped it. Always rap it. Never stop yourself from doing that. in the future.
Okay, fine. I'll never bring up a John Hurts or John Bellion song again.
No one's never going to do any song that has any rapping in it. That's fair.
I could never just move on from John Bellion like that. It's fine. It's whatever.
You would never. You could never betray yourself like that.
Nope. One thing in this episode that felt a little, out of place, but it was 2011, 12. Where are we at?
Yeah, 11. Aired October 2011.
Okay, yeah. So it was a very 2011 reference. Dogfighting ring, Michael Vick. Like, okay, yeah. He's not a good person. Sure. And it's it gets the point across. But I feel like just saying dogfighting ring, yeah, okay. We already know they're fucked up enough.
Yeah.
We don't have to keep dragging this guy who's been dragged thousands of times. I'm not defending him in any sort of way, but
nope.
They
definitely
bring it up
felt
3 times. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Once, sure. We don't have to use that as slang.
Yeah.
I did like the Ghost Dog though. Ghost Dog was a fun one.
Ghost Dog was fun. I thought that was a smart. I do think the way they did the Vic's deaths was visually interesting. The car crash.
The car in the apartment.
Yeah, in an upper floor apartment. It's such a cool way of showing. Yeah, very cool.
The crime scene looked pretty cool too.
Yeah, that's mostly I was visually it was more interesting than I feel like we have had in a while.
Yeah.
I do want to point out who wrote this episode. Not because I think it's huge, but this episode was written by Adam Glass. So it was directed by Robert Singer, but written by Adam Glass. And Adam Glass joined Supernatural in season 6.
Okay.
And he's a co-executive producer by season 7. It's really interesting. He has talked about there's a quote from him on his Supernatural fandom wiki where he says I think everyone writing for this show are not only great writers, they're just like me, and that we were all fans of the show before we even got here. So it's very much a dream come true. You're writing on a show you admire and love. Sometimes it occurs to me that I'm writing Sam and Dean, and I saw myself and say, oh my God, I'm writing Sam and Dean. This is awesome. So we were all fanboys coming into it, which is, I think, really, really interesting.
Yeah.
But he also said that he said that this was actually his least favorite episode that he wrote.
Interesting.
He wrote over 4 seasons, from season 6 to season 10. He wrote how many episodes? 4, 7, 10, 13. We wrote 15 episodes over 4 seasons.
Damn. Okay.
His favorite episode that he said he wrote was he wrote All Dogs Go to Heaven, and that was what he said his favorite episode to write was.
Fair.
Anyway, just thought that was kind of interesting.
A proclivity for including dog.
Yes, okay. He does. But also was a fan of the show, and so I think it's always interesting when you get a fan, someone who liked the show prior to it, writing for it.
Yeah,
and having fun playing with some of the lore stuff. And I think it's also cool that he's pulling back to stuff before his time on the show.
Yeah,
with the Joe stuff, I think he does really well at writing Joe, considering he wasn't on the team when Joe was in the story.
So this means he's a Dean Joe truther.
Yes, yes.
Okay, hell yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's where you get more of this solidifying of that.
I like that.
That ship.
That's what TV shows should do, hire people that are fans of the show so they can write their fanfic into the show. Yeah, come on.
Oh, just you fucking wait. Just you fucking wait. We're gonna get all sorts of examples of that. Some good and some worse.
I'm looking at 706/fiction.
You know what? You're gonna see all sorts of things.
I know it's early. It's only episode 4, but I am enjoying this season so far.
I actually genuinely thought you are. I'm not actually too surprised that you're having fun with this. I think that the storylines we're getting so far are kind of fun. And the sort of background Leviathan thing, again, Leviathans didn't really come up in this episode. I don't think they came up at all in this episode.
No, not really.
But we know they're lurking. Dean remarks early on in the episode that he's glad they're working just like a normal case. And of course, it's not a normal case because it's them. But
yeah, they legally can't do normal cases.
No, not anymore. Not anymore. Oh yeah, we get this interesting couple just a few little things. We don't see Lucifer in this episode, but we do hear him, which I do think was a nice little way of still keeping that continuity. Yeah. Where we get Sam sort of hearing whispers, but we also get the sense that Sam is able to has it fairly under control this episode more than in the previous episodes.
Yeah, that's true. Sam's hair is also looking pretty good this episode.
Sam's hair does look good this episode.
I was like, okay,
it's a good week for Sam. It's a good week for Sam's hair. Sam is actually doing weirdly well in this episode. It's a little disconcerting.
Yeah, he has one moment where he zones out, and besides that, it's pretty solid.
Yeah, he even says I think he even says he's happy happy at like one point, which like seems
Yeah.
fake, but okay.
Oh, that was one thing they said about Joe is she seems happier. Like, fuck.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And
that hurt.
it's interesting because you're like it's kind of like implying that she is like in heaven or wherever she is in the afterlife, like she's found some like peace and happiness, which is cool, but also I don't know, I don't trust the afterlife in Supernatural.
No, me neither. Very much not.
So it does seem a little sinister.
Yeah, I want to hear from Joe again though. At some point, she's an angel. It'd be cool if she came back as an angel. Ooh, that'd be even cooler.
Ooh. I do think the fun in terms of like entertaining pop culture stuff, Sam, when Sam first goes to defend Dean and Dean's like, you were not even a lawyer. And Sam's like, I was pre-law. And Dean's like, pre-law. And then the first thing that Sam does is some objection that he got from the good wife.
Yep.
That he freely admits. Like,
but Osiris is like, ooh, good objection. And Sam's like, that was the good wife.
That was a good wife. So canonically, Sam still watches lawyer-related shows.
Yep. Oh, Sam would have loved Daredevil.
Sam would have loved what?
Daredevil.
Oh, Sam would have loved Daredevil.
I'm sure he watched it at some point.
Yeah.
They had a Netflix subscription for sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, actually, sorry. I do want to have one more note, and that's just going to kind of come from the wiki, because I thought this was pointed out, and it's kind of a cool continuity thing. So Joe, and I also thought this visually was a powerful moment in the episode. Joe, like when she's going to kill Dean, she's going to do it by blowing him up. Even though Joe actually doesn't when Joe dies, Joe doesn't actually die from getting blown up.
No.
Joe dies from her wounds.
It's interesting how.
But Dean doesn't know that, and this is all about like Dean's perception of the situation, because Dean doesn't know that Joe dies before the explosion, and so the
only person that does is Ellen.
Yeah, which I thought was a kind of a nice like little thing for them to have, where it's like still it makes it really clear that this is all about like how Dean perceives he deserves.
Okay, so that might be a point towards Osiris not pulling the real Joe, but pulling Dean's perception of Joe.
Right? Like that's what I mean. Which like it might still be like accurate Joe, but it's not.
Or maybe when he takes them from heaven, he has to like brain wipe them a little bit to be not like, what the fuck, dude, I was in heaven. Put me back up there right now. Like,
right. To not be just freaking the fuck out.
Yeah. So he like has to tell them a story of some sort. Like, so this is what I know from Dean, and this is blah, blah, blah.
Interesting. Yeah, because like do they go back to does then Joe disappear back to heaven and like not remember that this has happened?
I would hope so. Talk about guilt and forgiveness. Like,
ooh, yeah.
Thinking that you almost killed your best friend.
Thanks.
Yeah. No bueno.
Ooh. Yeah, I think that was the last note that I had for this episode.
On that happy note, let's move into our final and favorite section of the episode. We've got our character blessing. Who would you like to bless this episode?
I would like to.
I can see you trying to figure out who I'm going to bless and being like, okay, so
Who do you want to bless today? I'm just gonna ask.
No. I want to know what your answer was first.
Okay, I think I want to bless Joe.
No.
I know that she's not. Whereas whether or not like Joe is having to relive this like horrible part of her life, and also try and like comfort and assuage the like feeling of guilt that Dean has, and like ultimately it's not either of their faults that it happened.
No.
And that's tough. That's rough. And I love Joe, and she deserves like so much better than the way that she died. And she deserved to like have other options other than hunting, and just like the Winchesters, she kind of never did. And I want to like bless Joe and like wish her well in her afterlife. Like I hope that this moment is a blip in her like happy afterlife.
Yeah,
because she certainly does not deserve more suffering.
Oh, please. I hope
a blessing for Joe.
I also hope that Ellen never finds out about this, knowing that Joe had to go through that would be rough.
Yes.
My blessing this week is going to go to the space hunters who find Osiris in a couple centuries And I hope that I hope that all of human fiction history is not like erased by that point. So they have like some clues as to who he is so they can pass it on to the alien hunters later on, whoever's next down the list.
No one's ever going to figure out how to kill Osiris. No. At the end of time, there will only be Osiris.
It'll just be Osiris sitting there waiting for someone to show up. Maybe Death is the one who has to hunt him down. Shit, that'd be dope. But also Dean. Yeah, anyway.
Next week's episode is called Shut Up, Dr. Phil. Any predictions, hopes, fears, longings?
Oh, it'd be cool to get an actual Dr. Phil cameo. That'd be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because he is someone that I would like to say shut up to occasionally. Shit. I mean, it's going to be some sort of like therapy session involved in it. Maybe, hopefully, therapy for Dean or the whole crew at this point. Honestly, they all need it. I feel like they've called people Dr. Phil before. That's a joke.
They definitely have. They've definitely made those jokes before.
Okay. Maybe Crowley shows back up again because I'm waiting for him to come back. I want to see him again.
Okay. Okay. Well, you'll have to wait and see next week.
Good. Speaking of, that's all we've got for you today, folks. August, thanks for coming on. This was a fucking blast.
This was very fun. Thank you, as always.
Good episode, good chat.
Yeah.
It was solid.
I had a great time. I had a very fun time.
Good time.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who's listening. If you want to hear more, you can make sure that you are subscribed to Saving People Queering Things on whatever preferred podcasting platform you listen. And if you like our show, maybe share it with a friend. If you want other ways to connect with us, you can join our free Discord server, find links to our other social media, such as our TikTok and Twitter and all that jazz, and catch up on the latest season mixtapes. And that is all going to be easy to find at our website, which is queeringthingspodcast.com.
Fantastic. Also, if you haven't heard yet, we've started doing a D&D queer adventure into a story that might seem a little familiar the more you listen to it. And that features KJ of Supernatural Opinions, as well as our main crew here. And it releases on Fridays.
Yeah, it's very, very fun.
So much fun.
If you like D&D, or if you like
our vibes in general. Yeah. One thing that is necessary is you do have to like listening to us. So thanks.
But thanks for that. Be sure to ride along with us next week as we explore Season 7, Episode 5, Shut Up, Dr. Phil, through the theme of choice.
Thank you all for coming along for the ride, and we wish you a peaceful road until we meet again.